Honor killing and the wider culture, actually, of honor and misogyny. There's so much to discuss, tragically. Columnist Barbara Kay's new book, Unworthy Creature, a Punjabi daughter's memoir of honor, shame and love. That's not Barbara's experience. She is the co-author with Arana Pap of this book. Why? Why this book at this time?
Well, the book project started a few years ago when I wrote a column saying, look, we have to distinguish between domestic violence and honor culture, because every time there was an incident, you remember Aqsa Parvez in 2007, there was an outcry if you mentioned the words honor crime or honor killing, and they, no, this is just another example of domestic violence, could happen to anyone, was the implication. And I said, look, the only thing these things have in common is the fact that girls and women get hurt or killed. But domestic violence is a very small and very individual concern in Canadian culture and Western culture, but honor crimes is systemic and is a very different phenomenon. We have to acknowledge it. So in response to that column, Aruna sent me, she says, I grew up in that culture and you really get it, and you're actually the only journalist I've seen that seems to be saying it, and I'd love to write my memoir and I need help. I said, well, let's talk, and we did, and that's how it happened. She, you know, English isn't her first language, and she needed help to tell her story, but it's a great story, a riveting tale. And
what should be stressed is that whilst Islam is mentioned, well, most of the time when it comes to honor killing, and we mustn't avoid these issues, we think more than 90% of honor killings involve Islam. In this case, it is not an Islamic issue. No, and one of Aruna's, the big themes that she harps on, she knows the numbers. She knows the numbers, but she says, look, it's not only about religion, it's about culture, and culture covers an entire region. She says, look, I'm third-generation Christian. Her grandparents were converted to Seventh-day Adventism, very popular in the Punjab and elsewhere in India, because it offered natives a way out of the caste system. It promised them they'd be equal in Christ. And that was very attractive as a proposition to many of these Indians who saw themselves fated to be forever doomed to their low caste. But she said, look, I'm third-generation Christian. My father had the same notions of honor as Hindus, Sikhs, and Muslims. And, you know, I don't know the numbers. She said, the numbers don't matter to me because I grew up being treated exactly the same as girls like Aqsa or these Shafia girls. She says, I know what it is to grow up like that. Of course, in the diaspora of these communities, although there have been cases within the Sikh community and very occasionally in the Hindu community, the overwhelming number where it seems to hold, like glue, is within Islam. And it's within Islamic communities outside of South Asia, too, in Yemen and Saudi Arabia and Egypt.
That's true. Well, what is also true is that when there are more Hindu and Sikh honor crimes in the countries of origin, but when they migrate, something seems to happen. The numbers go down in the Hindu and Sikh and Christian communities, but the Muslim, they seem to bring it more with them than the others, and I can't comment on that because I don't know why that happens. In any case, whatever communities it is in, the leaders must acknowledge it, and I think they're starting to. Don't you think so?
I think some of them are, but still for the most part there is this extraordinary denial, and it's not so much the leaders of the community denying it, it's when white people in this sort of inverted racism go along with it. Because the victims are young brown women. Well,
this is one of Aruna's points. She was the first person in Canada to actually research violence amongst girls and women in the South Asian community, and she was the first person to start agencies that dealt exclusively with that. She has been a pariah in her own community for many years.
Oh, really?
It's starting to change. She is now more, you know, more leaders in the community are saying, Aruna, it's been 30 years since she's been talking about this, and nobody wanted to hear it at the beginning. But there's still a lot of resistance amongst feminists who say, and feminists from Indian feminists or South Asian feminists who grew up themselves in cities and were very westernized. And they say, no, it's not, that's going away, and she simply says, look, I only know my own experience. This is where I grew up, not in the big cities and you know, your experience is your experience, but only 15% of people live in the big cities. There's a huge crowd out there that do not. I mean, her own family are shunning her now because they know this book. When they knew this book was coming out, they immediately all stopped speaking to her, her siblings, her extended family. There's a lot of shame they feel in her kind of outing what her family, what her household was like, and in talking about this issue. They feel that it is harmful. Some of them feel, like the rest of the community, oh, this is racist talk, it's stereotyping.
But they've learned that from the white liberal community.
Well, of course, and they've picked it up, and they're promoting that image. And Aruna is that's exactly the sort of thing. She says, look, it's not racist to help girls that need help. Last week we went to Ottawa, and she brought along with her a young woman who wanted to speak personally to Rona Ambrose because Ms. Ambrose was there at our official launch. And this young, beautiful woman told her story to Ms. Ambrose of she's from here since she was 8 years old. When she was 17, her father insisted she go back to Pakistan, marry her first cousin so that she could sponsor him to come over. When she went back there and she refused, they had her raped, and her life has been a living hell. Now she's in a safe house. Her social worker helped her to escape that house, but she told her story to Ms. Ambrose. Tears were running down her face, and tears were in Ms. Ambrose. It was quite a moment. Yeah. And I have to say, Minister Ambrose has been incredible about helping promote this issue, facing it squarely, courageously. I can't say enough good about.
It's wonderful to hear you're a Conservative government minister who's embraced this.
Yes.
Well, it's a human cause, but a feminist cause. And those who in mainstream left-wing feminism who say we don't want to touch the issue because we could be accused of racism. That this marrying young girls to their cousins, which is very common now in Western Europe, is producing retardation in children. They're forced into the marriages. They're often raped. There are rape gangs now in Britain. And still people are pretending it's not a challenge.
I don't understand why feminists of all people, these are girls and women, and what seems to be more important to them is that this idea of the patriarchy remain a universal phenomenon. Yeah. It's very hard for them to say Canada and the West is no longer patriarchal. We are not a patriarchy, and we are not. But these cultures are. They can't get their heads around that something can be culturally rooted, and therefore it has to be addressed as a cultural issue. There's no way around it.
Well, let's begin by buying lots of copies of the book Unworthy Creature, a Punjabi daughter's memoir on honour, shame and love, Rana Pap, with Barbara Kay. Freedom Press and Amazon and places like that.
Amazon, yes, or freedompress.ca.
Marvellous. As always, thank goodness you're writing and you're here. Thank you so very much.
Thanks for having me, Michael.